you've ever said, I can think for myself, or AI is terrible for the environment, you're not alone. Those are real concerns. And I used to say the same thing. But if we looked at this a little differently, we could see that AI is here. We're in the age of AI, and it might not be as bad or as harmful as you think. Let's go into it. Hi, I'm Valencia Perry, one of your SLP besties, and today we're going to discuss AI. Now, recently I've been having conversations online with clinicians about, ChatGPT, Claude AI, why they're not using it, what's keeping them from using it. And to my surprise, many clinicians have said that, one, AI is terrible for the environment, therefore they're not using it. Two, they said that AI is highly inaccurate, therefore there's no sense in using it. Three, they said that they can think for themselves and therefore they don't want to be caught up in AI. Another reason clinicians avoid using AI is because they say it is unethical. And the fifth reason, I'm not sure if I said it already, but is that it seems to be highly inaccurate. Wow. Okay, so how do we address this? My issue is I'm concerned for the profession. Why? Because we are not in the information age anymore. We are in the age of AI. So if we have all of these reasons to stay away from AI, it's causing more damage than good. It's not necessarily helping us to stay away from AI. I do understand these arguments, and they are valid. I will give them that. However, the direction that we're moving in is not the direction that we're in terms of reality. So avoiding AI isn't necessarily going to make their clinical practice more efficient or save the environment. There are AI software programs that do use energy, and it seems like a lot of energy. But if you compare that to the energy that we're using in other household items or with our cars, you'll see that it's actually quite comparable. Now, again, I am not an AI or energy expert, so I want to stay in my lane here, and I welcome feedback and, more information. But to my knowledge, I don't see it being as harmful as many people are saying in light of other harms that we're utilizing in our day-to-day experiences. So I'll just leave it there. Now, so you can decide for yourself. Another issue is that we are already using AI in the workplace. It's not, so if you decide I'm not going to use AI, if you work for a company, especially a large organization, but even a small company, if your company has a business email address, AI is 9 times out of 10 integrated into your business email. I know you've seen things pop up at the top of your email saying summaries of what an email you've received is about. That's AI. So that's, if you say you're not going to use it, it's being used every time you open your email, and it's contributing to the issues you're saying about, that are affecting the environment. So it's here is what I'm saying. I'm not saying, walk around talking to your AI, program all day, every day, but I'm saying it's here. So avoiding it is kind of impossible at this point if you're using technology on a regular daily basis. For example, there are other AI integrations in our drives or our clouds, whatever we're using to store data. AI is now in that. AI, again, is in our task management software programs. So if you have different tasks assigned to different team members, there's likely an AI integration. If you also are using an EHR, there's likely an AI note-taking software at a minimum, but there's probably other AI integrations that are happening behind the scenes that company is planning on rolling out that you might not even be aware of if they haven't already rolled them out. The direction that companies are taking is utilization of artificial intelligence into the day-to-day operations of their end users. It is not to avoid AI. So if you avoid AI, you might be missing significant and substantial opportunities for enhanced and increased productivity, more accurate clinical work. Yeah, dare I say, more accurate clinical work, more efficient and effective workflows, right? More reliable documentation, processes, and results. You might be missing out on these things if you're avoiding AI because AI is advancing and you might still not understand how to maximize its use. So we're in the age of AI, like I said. And if you think about your job demands and how productivity increases have changed, productivity expectations have changed over time, you might begin to understand how we're going to be expected to do more with less because AI is going to be integrated as part of our daily routines in our jobs. So they're going to expect us to be able to produce reports more rapidly, to have more precise data analysis. The age of using the self or using the owls or using the castle and calling it a day is done. We need to be able to analyze specifics of the speech and language patterns of the clients that we're working with so that we can be more diagnostically precise. It is difficult to do that using a standardized assessment, battery, or tool, even if it's a speech assessment, right? If it's, for example, one of the main ones, the Goldman Fristow or the Arizona or the CAP. Any of these speech assessments can give you insight into speech sound errors, generally at the word level, but also at the sentence level. However, they're not unique to the individual that you're working for. So you'd still want to do some type of speech sound analysis, even if it's very basic, to account for that individual idiosyncratic differences. Yes, to account for the individual idiosyncratic differences that that person is displaying. Otherwise, you might misdiagnose them and affect your credibility. And again, I think that's an underlying issue that many clinicians were alluding to when they said that they can think for themselves. It's really a credibility issue. And I believe you're more credible if you utilize AI because you're accounting for the things that you're not considering. AI sometimes can point out things that we might overlook in the diagnostic process. It can help us to analyze more rapidly and also to analyze larger data sets. So if we're missing out on those things, then we can be struggling with our analysis or our results or our final interpretations. No, AI is not going to replace us, and no, AI should not be thinking for us. Rather, AI is more like a thinking calculator, right? It thinks quickly and it can hold larger amounts of data. And it really can be useful across all phases of the diagnostic or even treatment process. But specifically here, I'm speaking about diagnoses. And AI can help us with transcribing samples. AI can help us with coding samples in terms of speech sound patterns. It can identify patterns of errors or deviations from standardized expectations or standard expectations of speech. It can help us to detect if multiple languages are being used. No, it is not perfect. That's why clinicians are still needed, but it can facilitate these processes to make our workflow more efficient, more timely, more accurate. So I don't want us to be so against AI as a field. And it's really disheartening to see so many clinicians not embrace it because of whatever boundary they've built in their mind. However, I want clinicians to consider that we are expected to be modern and to, align with the times. And I don't think that AI should be thinking for us. I think that AI should be thinking with us, and we can use AI to improve outcomes for our patients. And why would you want to avoid doing that? Many clinicians, to be frank, have very little training on cultural linguistic diversity and are not necessarily at a point where they feel confident using language samples or even speech samples. But AI can make this process easier for you so that you can feel more confident and be more reliable as you analyze language and speech from people who speak dialects or languages other than those you are familiar with. That's another reason why we should integrate AI into our practice. And if we do so, we can control the models and we can ensure that the models are sensitive to our needs. I'm thinking of many EHR platforms that integrate AI, but are not very useful for SLPs, even though we utilize the platforms because they were designed for counselors or mental health therapists or occupational therapists, but they were not designed with speech language pathologists in mind. So using AI will help us to be able to better program these large language models to be able to think in a direction that's more aligned with our clinical thinking framework, right? Our logic models as clinicians. So consider these things and take a step toward AI instead of away from it if you can. I understand that it can be daunting and you might not know where to start. There are many resources for you as a clinician. You can start with just free resources available online. I do have 2 free webinars coming up where I'm going to be speaking about, one is about more so the multi-generational workforce and mindsets around using artificial intelligence and working in a distance manner or remote manner. That is with Zoom and several panelists, and we will be discussing these concepts again of the multi-generational workforce on
August 6th, 2 p.m. EST.
I have another presentation or webinar with Zoom again. This is on August 13th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and we will be discussing how to utilize Zoom's telepractice platform or telehealth platform in a clinical, workplace. I'll speak specifically on how I utilize it in my speech language pathology private practice, how I've been able to retain clients and also maintain engagement from clients as young as 1 year old to clients as old as, I think my oldest that I've worked with on telehealth was in her 80s, like 87. But you can work with people older than that, and you can work with babies. So, I'll be discussing those things, and those are 2 free webinars. And if you want to dive deep with me, I have a training on August the 5th at 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time, and we will be discussing and walking through case examples. So it'll be instructional, but it'll be a workshop. We'll be learning how to use ChatGPT to analyze speech sounds and from a speech sample and to put that information into a clinical report. So again, we're walking through the workflow. What does it look like from from collection to transcription to analysis and interpretation, and then finally documentation. So if you're interested in any of these classes that I'm offering or webinars that I'm offering, check out the information in the comment. I'll either post it in the comment or in the description box. Follow me on my socials for more information, and please trust that you will get this. You are not behind. We are all at the cusp of this new way of working. So you are not behind, and you need to make sure that you're able to keep up with the profession in the next 3 to 5 years. It's going to evolve rapidly, and we need to be at the forefront of it instead of the tail end. So if you could do one thing different, run towards AI by taking one step closer to it, and do that today. All right, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.